Harper stood at the edge of the snowy driveway, her breath rising in soft clouds. As she watched Lena step out of the car with a practiced smile, the winter air carried the scent of pine and distant chimneys, reminding Harper how long it had been since she'd come home for Christmas. She pulled her coat tighter, pretending confidence she didn't feel. Bringing a fake girlfriend was supposed to simplify things, yet her stomach churned with the weight of every unspoken truth. Lena adjusted her scarf and offered Harper a reassuring look, the kind that suggested she'd handled complicated holiday lies before. She radiated a warm, steady charm that almost made the act believable. Harper reminded herself this was temporary. 7 days, one family, and a quiet exit once the festivities were over. No emotions, no real attachment, nothing that could slip out of control. But the snow crunching under Lena's boots felt like a beginning anyway. Through the windows of the Harris home, golden light spilled onto the porch. As voices rose in excited chatter, already expecting Harper's arrival. She hadn't told them she was bringing someone, hoping the surprise would cover the truth behind the arrangement. Her family wanted to believe she'd moved on, especially after how last year had ended with Avery. Harper inhaled slowly, bracing herself for questions she couldn't answer honestly. When the door swung open, her mother rushed forward first, pulling Harper into a tight embrace that smelled like cinnamon and holiday candles. Her father followed with a booming laugh, already ushering them inside, while her younger brother hovered with a grin too wide to trust. Harper introduced Lena quickly, watching her family's eyes brighten instantly. Everyone seemed charmed by her, which was the plan. But Harper felt a strange tension under her ribcage she couldn't name. Lena played the part effortlessly, offering polite warmth and gentle humor, as she complimented the decorations and accepted a mug of hot cocoa. Harper watched her move around the living room like she belonged there, drawing attention without trying, earning delighted laughter from everyone. It should have relieved Harper, knowing Lena was handling things perfectly. Instead, it made her heart beat uncomfortably fast. She told herself it was just nerves and nothing more. Then, just as Harper began to settle into the evening's rhythm, a familiar voice drifted from the doorway behind her, soft, low, and unforgettable. She turned and froze when she saw Avery standing there, snowflakes tangled in dark curls, eyes sharp with recognition. Avery looked between Harper and Lena with a slow, unreadable smile, the kind that suggested there was more to the moment than anyone else realized. Harper's pulse stuttered, and the room seemed to shrink around her. Avery stepped closer, her gaze lingering on Lena. With an expression Harper couldn't interpret, curiosity, familiarity, something else. "Interesting," Avery murmured, as if she already knew a secret no one had shared. Harper forced a smile and introduced Lena, insisting they had just met recently. But the way Avery's lips curved, slow and knowing, made Harper uneasy. It was a smile full of questions and quiet accusations. A smile that suggested Avery had seen Lena before, somewhere Harper didn't know about. Harper's family didn't notice the tension threading between the three women, too busy pouring drinks and debating which dessert to serve first. Lena kept her composure, though Harper caught the slight stiffening of her shoulders whenever Avery's gaze lingered too long. Harper tried to convince herself she was imagining things, that the smile Avery had given Lena meant nothing. But a cold knot formed in her stomach, refusing to loosen. Avery moved around the living room with practiced ease, like she still remembered where everything belonged in Harper's life. She accepted a glass of cider and sank into the armchair by the tree, never once looking away from Lena. Lena pretended not to notice, keeping close to Harper's side, their hands brushing now and then for the sake of the act. Each accidental touch sent warmth up Harper's arm she didn't expect. When Harper finally took a seat beside Lena on the couch, Avery leaned back and crossed her legs, her stare deceptively calm. "So," Avery said, voice carrying just enough curiosity to sound dangerous. "How exactly did you two meet?" The question hit Harper harder than it should have. She had prepared answers, excuses, details for believability. Yet suddenly every rehearsed word felt fragile. Lena jumped in smoothly before Harper could stumble. "We met at a bookshop in the city," she said with an easy smile, her voice steady, as if the memory were real. Harper nodded along, though her pulse hammered at her temples. Avery tilted her head, eyes narrowing with subtle recognition. "A bookshop," she murmured, as though testing the truth of it. The air tightened around them, charged with something unseen. Harper searched Avery's expression, desperate to understand what she thought she knew about Lena. Avery had always been excellent at reading people, picking up truths others couldn't hide. She watched Lena now with that same unsettling intensity, as if she were piecing together a puzzle Harper didn't know existed. Harper's breath caught when Avery's lips curved again. "You know," Avery said softly, tapping her finger on her glass. "I'm sure I've seen you before." The words sliced clean through the room's cozy atmosphere. Lena blinked, her smile faltering for the first time all evening. Harper felt the shift instantly, a jolt beneath her ribcage. Lena recovered quickly, offering a polite laugh that didn't reach her eyes. But Avery kept watching her like someone confirming a memory. Before Harper could question anything, her mother called everyone to dinner, breaking the tension with cheerful insistence. Avery rose from the chair, but her gaze lingered on Lena a moment longer. That same strange mixture of recognition and curiosity darkening her eyes. Lena breathed out quietly, relief flickering across her face. As they followed the family to the dining room, but Harper walked behind them with a heavy feeling she couldn't shake. The dining room glowed with soft candlelight, the table crowded with steaming dishes and mismatched holiday plates. Harper slipped into the seat beside Lena, trying to steady her thoughts. As Avery took the chair directly across from them, her family launched into stories and laughter, unaware of the tension, stretching thin between the three women like a pulled thread. Harper's fork felt heavy in her hand, her appetite fading. Lena interacted politely, offering compliments and small anecdotes, but Harper noticed the subtle tremor in her smile. Whenever Lena looked down, the shadow of worry crossed her face, only to vanish when she lifted her gaze again. Avery watched every shift, every flicker, never missing a beat. Her eyes held a quiet certainty that made Harper uneasy. It felt as though Avery already had an answer Harper didn't. Harper's father asked Lena about her job, giving her a welcome distraction from Avery's scrutiny. Lena launched into an explanation about her design work, hands moving animatedly as she described her latest project. Her confidence returned for a moment, genuine and warm. Harper found herself watching Lena with unexpected softness, forgetting the act and feeling something dangerously real. But Avery broke the moment with a deceptively casual comment. "You have a good memory for details," she said to Lena, her tone light, but her eyes sharp as glass. Lena's smile froze for half a second, barely noticeable, but Harper saw it. Avery leaned her elbow on the table, studying her intently, like she was waiting for Lena to trip over something only she understood. Harper's pulse thudded in her ears, warning her something was wrong. To defuse the tension, Harper's mother asked about holiday plans, shifting the conversation to travel, traditions, and winter memories. Lena answered comfortably, weaving herself into the family dynamic, as though she had been part of it for years. Avery remained silent at first, observing with a distant expression. Then she offered a small, thoughtful smile that didn't reach her eyes. It felt more like a preparation than a reaction. Harper tried to focus on the chatter, the warmth, the familiar chaos. But her mind kept drifting back to Avery's earlier words. Why did Avery think she recognized Lena? Had they crossed paths without Harper knowing? Or was Avery bluffing, trying to unsettle her? The uncertainty crawled under Harper's skin like a whispering fear. She clenched her hands under the table, forcing calm. Near the end of dinner, Avery leaned forward slightly, her voice low enough that only Harper and Lena could hear. "I remember now," she said, almost triumphantly. Lena's breath hitched, her eyes darting toward Harper in alarm. Harper froze, every muscle tightening as she waited for the rest. But Avery simply leaned back and offered a cryptic smile. "Don't worry. I'll tell you later. A ripple of unease ran through Harper as Avery rose from the table, offering to help clear the dishes before anyone else could volunteer. Lena tried to stand as well, but Harper gently touched her arm, pressing her back into her seat with a quiet reassurance. She didn't want Avery cornering Lena in the kitchen, not when she sensed there was something unspoken simmering beneath the surface. But Avery only smiled sweetly and carried plates away. Harper excused herself a moment later, following Avery into the kitchen, where the soft sound of running water merged with the crackling fireplace. Avery stood with her back turned, sleeves rolled up, scrubbing a plate far more aggressively than necessary. Harper hesitated at the doorway, feeling the cold draft brush past her. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice tight but controlled. Avery paused, her shoulders stilling. Avery set the plate down and turned slowly, her eyes carrying that same unsettling curiosity from earlier. "I didn't say anything," Avery replied, drying her hands calmly. "But I could. And that seems to bother you." Harper swallowed the rising frustration blocking her breath. "You're being cryptic on purpose," she said, trying to keep steady. Avery only tilted her head, as if amused by Harper's struggle. "Harper," Avery said softly, stepping closer. "You really don't recognize her?" The question landed like a blow Harper hadn't expected. Lena's face flashed through her mind, her warm eyes, her careful smile, the way she carried herself like someone used to watching from shadows. But nothing unlocked a forgotten memory. Harper shook her head, confused and unnerved. Avery observed her reaction with quiet intensity, as if confirming a theory she'd been forming since she walked in. "I thought maybe you brought her here on purpose," she murmured. Harper blinked, stunned by the implication. "On purpose? I hired her for 1 week," she insisted. But Avery didn't respond immediately, her gaze growing distant. Instead, she simply picked up another plate and turned away again. Harper opened her mouth to demand answers, but her mother walked in cheerfully, interrupting the moment. "Girls, don't worry about all this. Go relax in the living room." Avery flashed a polite smile and dried her hands, slipping past Harper with a whisper of untouched tension. Harper stood frozen under the kitchen lights, feeling like everyone else knew a secret she didn't. When she returned to the living room, Lena glanced up from the couch with a question already in her eyes. Harper sat beside her, forcing a steady breath as warmth from the fireplace wrapped around them like a makeshift shield against Avery's lingering presence. Lena's fingers lightly brushed Harper's hand, a small gesture meant for reassurance, not performance. But the touch sent a tremor of truth deep through Harper's chest. Harper leaned back into the couch, trying to ground herself, as Lena watched her with quiet concern. The hum of conversation from the dining room felt distant now, muted beneath the pressure building behind Harper's ribs. "Did Avery say something to you?" Lena asked softly. Her voice carried a steadiness that eased the tension around them. Harper wished she had a clear answer to offer. "She thinks she knows you," Harper finally whispered, the words tasting strange as they left her mouth. Lena's posture stiffened ever so slightly, a subtle change Harper wouldn't have noticed an hour earlier. But now she watched Lena carefully, reading every shift, every flicker in her eyes that didn't match her calm exterior. "I don't know why," Harper added, unsure of anything anymore. Lena folded her hands in her lap, expression composed. But Harper sensed the internal tension beneath the stillness. "I don't recognize her," Lena said slowly, her tone too measured to be entirely natural. Harper wanted to believe her without question. Yet Avery's unsettling confidence lingered like a shadow. Nothing felt accidental anymore. Before Harper could press further, her brother joined them, plopping onto the armchair with a grin that demanded attention. He launched into a chaotic story about their aunt's disastrous cookies, drawing laughter from Lena despite the weight hanging in the air. Harper forced a smile, grateful for the momentary distraction. Still, she caught Lena's sidelong glance, silent, searching, strained. Their secret arrangement suddenly felt fragile in her hands. Avery entered the room a minute later, moving with the easy familiarity of someone who belonged here. She didn't interrupt the conversation. but her gaze flickered immediately to Lena, pinning her with quiet certainty before softening with practiced charm. Harper's brother began asking Avery about her recent trips, unaware of the silent storm building between them. Harper watched Avery answer casually, her voice smooth and warm as she recounted distant cities and snowy roads. Yet even while speaking, Avery's attention kept drifting back to Lena, her eyes narrowing like she was trying to place a missing detail. Lena tried to appear unaffected, offering polite nods and small smiles. But Harper felt the slight tremor in Lena's breathing beside her. A truth hovered between them, unspoken and sharp. The room's cozy atmosphere grew thinner with each passing minute, as though the air itself sensed the approaching shift. Harper's heart raced, not from fear but from anticipation, a desperate need to understand what Avery believed she knew. Lena touched Harper's knee gently, grounding her again. "We can talk later," Lena murmured, too quietly for others to hear. Harper nodded, though her stomach twisted with dread. Later that evening, the family settled into their usual holiday routine, gathering around the fireplace with blankets and mugs of cocoa. Harper sat beside Lena on the rug, trying to relax into the warmth. But Avery took a seat on the armchair directly behind them, close enough that Harper could feel the weight of her presence. Lena kept her posture composed, though Harper sensed the strain. A quiet storm hovered beneath the flickering lights. Harper's mother suggested playing a board game, one they used to play every Christmas before life became complicated. The suggestion earned cheerful agreement from everyone except Harper, whose stomach tightened when Avery volunteered to keep score. Lena placed a reassuring hand on Harper's shoulder, her calm touch grounding her more than the fire ever could. Still, Harper couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As the game progressed, laughter and teasing filled the room. But Avery's commentary kept drifting towards subtle questions. She asked Lena about places she'd lived, jobs she'd taken, cities she'd visited, too specific to be random. Lena answered politely at first, but Harper noticed the cracks, hesitations, forced smiles, the way her fingers tightened around each card. Avery watched every reaction with quiet satisfaction. Harper tried to intervene, steering the conversation elsewhere. Yet Avery always looped it back, weaving small traps in her questions. It felt less like curiosity and more like interrogation, as though Avery was searching for a single, missing puzzle piece. Lena leaned slightly closer to Harper, as if finding safety in her presence without fully admitting it. Harper felt the shift, protective, instinctive, unexpected. When the game finally ended, Harper's brother announced himself the winner, breaking the tension with a triumphant shout that made everyone laugh. Lena clapped politely, but Harper saw the exhaustion behind her smile. Avery lingered at the edge of the room, leaning against the bookcase with an unreadable expression. She seemed both patient and calculating, as if waiting for the perfect moment to reveal something. Harper helped her mother gather the game pieces, stealing glances at Lena, who rubbed her hands together for warmth. She wanted to pull Lena aside, to ask her outright, but the living room buzzed with too many ears and too much curiosity. Avery pushed off the bookcase and approached them, her steps slow, deliberate, carrying a quiet gravity. "Harper," Avery said, "can we talk privately?" The request hit like an icy gust, freezing the small comfort Harper had managed to build. Lena looked up instantly, her eyes tightening with worry, as though she sensed what Avery intended to say. Harper swallowed, nodding despite the dread rising in her chest. Avery offered a polite smile to the room before turning toward the hallway. Harper followed, each step feeling heavier than the last. Avery led Harper down the dim hallway, the festive sounds of the living room fading behind them. She stopped near the old coat closet, a familiar corner of the house, where they used to whisper late-night confessions years ago. The memory made Harper's chest tighten painfully. Avery crossed her arms, studying Harper with steady, serious eyes. "This isn't about us," she said quietly. Harper exhaled, tension slipping into her shoulders. "Then what is it about?" she asked, her voice thin with worry. Avery looked away for a moment, gathering her thoughts, as though weighing how much truth she should reveal. I'm not trying to sabotage your holiday, Avery said slowly. But I can't pretend I didn't recognize her. The words sent a cold ripple down Harper's spine. Harper stepped closer, searching Avery's face for certainty. Avery, I've never seen Lena before this week, she insisted. Avery didn't argue, but her jaw tightened with restraint. She wasn't at a bookshop, Avery murmured, eyes narrowing. She was at the community center downtown last summer. Harper blinked, confusion tangling with disbelief. What was she doing there? Harper asked, heart pounding. Avery hesitated again, as though crossing a delicate line. She wasn't alone, Avery said softly. And she definitely wasn't acting like a stranger. Harper felt the floor tilt beneath her, her thoughts racing through every interaction with Lena tonight. Nothing had seemed off, nothing out of place. Yet Avery's certainty cracked the edges of Harper's trust. Harper shook her head, refusing to jump to conclusions. There has to be an explanation, she murmured, though the tremble in her voice betrayed her fear. Avery watched her carefully, sympathy flickering briefly in her eyes. I'm not telling you to panic, Avery said quietly. I'm telling you to pay attention. The warning settled like frost along Harper's skin. Before Harper could respond, Lena appeared at the end of the hallway. Her expression composed, but her eyes unmistakably worried. She approached slowly, as though unsure if she was welcome, her gaze shifting between Harper and Avery with tense awareness. Is everything okay? Lena asked softly. Her voice held sincerity, but also something guarded. Something Harper had never noticed until now. Harper opened her mouth, unsure where to begin. But Avery stepped aside, giving Lena the space to join them. The air thickened instantly, charged with unspoken truths. Lena reached for Harper's hand, her touch gentle, grounding. Yet Harper sensed a new heaviness behind it. We should talk, Lena whispered, barely audible. Avery watched them both with a look Harper couldn't decipher. Harper followed Avery through the hallway, her steps slow and careful, as if every memory of their past relationship lingered in the air around them. Lena stayed close behind, unsure whether to give them space or stand her ground as the girlfriend she was pretending to be. The Harris family laughter echoed faintly from the living room, but the tension between the three women made the hallway feel cold. Avery finally stopped near the framed family photos and turned, studying Harper with an expression she tried to mask with politeness. But Harper saw it. The suspicion hadn't left her eyes since the moment she met Lena. I'm trying to understand this, Avery said softly, her voice steady but edged. You acted like this was the first time Lena walked into your life, but she looked at me like she recognized me. Harper opened her mouth to respond, but Lena stepped forward first, shaking her head. I don't know you, Lena insisted, gentle but firm. I swear I don't. Avery watched her carefully, arms crossed as if she were analyzing a crime scene. The silent weight of her stare made Harper's heartbeat spike with guilt she didn't owe anyone. Harper dragged a hand through her hair, frustrated at how fast this simple holiday plan was collapsing. Avery, you're reading too much into things, she said, though her voice wavered. Avery had always been able to read her, decode her, unravel her thoughts with a single raised eyebrow. And now those same instincts were tearing apart Harper's carefully crafted lie. I'm not, Avery replied. There was something in the way she looked at me. Recognition. Familiarity. Lena blinked, startled. I don't even live in this state. Avery kept her gaze locked on Lena, as if waiting for the fake girlfriend to slip, to reveal something that didn't match the story. Maybe it's nothing, Avery murmured, though her eyes clearly disagreed with her words. Harper stepped slightly in front of Lena, a protective reflex she didn't fully understand. This is supposed to be a calm holiday, Harper said quietly. Not whatever this is becoming. Lena felt a pang of guilt then. This wasn't supposed to be complicated. She was hired to be a buffer, not a storm. Lena took a slow breath and finally spoke again. I'm not hiding anything from either of you, she said. Her voice carried honesty, but Harper noticed the small tremor that Avery did too. I don't know you, Lena repeated to Avery, softer now, like she wished she could erase the tension hanging between them. Avery's expression flickered. Confusion first, then something more fragile. Then why did it feel like you did? She whispered, almost to herself. A brief silence pressed in around them. Harper felt torn in two directions, protecting Lena, calming Avery, and keeping the Harris family from noticing the emotional wildfire happening in their hallway. She stepped closer to Avery. You're projecting old feelings onto a new situation, Harper whispered, but Avery's throat tightened. This isn't about old feelings, Avery replied sharply. It's about the fact that something here doesn't add up. Lena lowered her gaze. Harper felt her stomach twist. Before any of them could speak again, Mrs. Harris's voice floated from the kitchen. Girls, dinner's ready. The moment snapped apart, but the tension didn't. Harper took a shaky breath and gestured toward the dining room. Avery went ahead, but she glanced back with a look that sent a chill down Harper's spine, half challenge, half warning. Lena lingered beside Harper, whispering, I didn't mean to make things worse. Harper swallowed hard.
You didn't, she said.
But she wasn't sure she believed it. Dinner at the Harris table was usually loud, cheerful, and chaotic, but that evening an invisible tension threaded itself between Harper, Lena, and Avery. Harper sat in the middle, trying to keep a neutral expression while her parents chatted about holiday plans. Lena sat to her right, smiling politely though her shoulders were stiff. Avery sat across from them, and every so often her eyes darted toward Lena. Not hostile, not warm, just searching. Harper felt each glance like a pinprick, aware that Avery was still turning something over in her mind. So, Lena, Mr. Harris said in his usual boisterous tone, Harper tells us you study graphic design. Lena froze for half a second, then smoothly nodded. Yes, she replied, grateful Harper had given her at least one detail to build on. Avery watched her closely, as if memorizing every micro-expression. Graphic design, Avery repeated thoughtfully. Interesting. I swear I've seen someone who looked like you. Maybe at a gallery opening? Or a design showcase. Lena's fork clattered softly against her plate, and Harper felt her stomach drop. Lena quickly shook her head. I don't go to events like that, she said a little too fast. Harper shot her a quick, warning look, one that begged her to stay steady, stay consistent. Avery's eyes narrowed slightly. Strange. You just seem familiar. Mrs. Harris, oblivious to the undercurrent, jumped in cheerfully. Well, that means you two were destined to meet. Harper almost groaned. Avery's faint, knowing smile returned, the one that made Harper feel like her ex was 2 steps ahead of her. Harper tried to redirect. So, Mom, the tree looks great this year, but Mrs. Harris waved her off, eyes sparkling with curiosity. Oh, no. I want to hear more about how you two met. Harper always hides the good details. Harper stiffened. Avery leaned forward slightly, curiosity sharpening. Lena cleared her throat, ready to launch into the fake story they'd practiced. But Avery beat her to it. Actually, Avery said softly, I'd like to hear Lena's version. There was a challenge in her tone, polite but undeniable. Lena forced a smile, but Harper could see panic flickering behind it. Well, Harper and I met at a coffee shop, Lena began, sticking to the script. She spilled tea on me. It was, memorable. Mr. Harris laughed. That sounds like our Harper. Avery tilted her head. Funny, she murmured, because Harper hates tea. She always has. Harper's heart stopped. Lena blinked, thrown completely off. Harper opened her mouth to jump in, but Avery's gaze had already locked on her, waiting for an explanation. That's new, Harper managed, trying not to choke on her words. I started drinking tea a few months ago. It was a terrible lie, and Avery's slow exhale said she knew it. Really? Avery asked softly. Or are you just trying to make a story fit? Lena's breath hitched. Mrs. Harris looked between them, confused but trying to keep things light. Girls, is something wrong? She asked gently. Harper smiled tightly. No, everything's fine. But nothing was fine, not with Avery dismantling their lie piece by piece. Avery finally leaned back in her chair, but her expression had changed, less suspicious now, more unsettled. Never mind, she said, offering a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'm probably overthinking. But Harper knew that tone. Avery wasn't letting it go. She was retreating to watch from a distance, the way she always did before uncovering something. Lena nudged Harper's knee under the table, a silent plea for reassurance. Harper forced a calm breath, but the truth weighed heavy. This wasn't a simple slip-up. Something deeper was unraveling, and Avery could feel it. After dinner, everyone drifted toward the living room, but Harper lingered in the hallway, needing a moment to breathe. Lena stood beside her, arms wrapped around herself as though she were bracing against a storm only she could feel. Avery remained in the dining room, pretending to help Mrs. Harris with dishes, though Harper could feel her gaze flicking over every few seconds. "I'm sorry," Lena whispered. "I didn't mean to mess anything up." Harper shook her head quickly. "You didn't. Avery is just Avery." But the uncertainty in her voice betrayed her. Lena's eyes softened with worry. "I know I'm supposed to just play a role, but when she looks at me like she knows something," she trailed off, shivering. Harper felt a protective instinct rise sharply in her chest, one she hadn't expected to feel for someone she barely knew. "She doesn't know you," Harper said quietly. "She's just looking for cracks because she still hates that I moved on." Lena nodded slowly, but Harper could tell she didn't fully believe it. "Okay," Lena murmured. "But something about her stare, it feels too pointed." Avery appeared in the doorway then, drying her hands on a towel, her expression unreadable. "Harper," she said softly, "can I talk to you alone?" The request sent a ripple of dread through Harper. Lena immediately took a half step back. "Go," she whispered. "I'll be fine." Harper hesitated before following Avery into the quiet front porch, where cold air seeped through the windows and memories pressed close. Avery didn't speak at first. She simply studied Harper with a look that was far more emotional than suspicious. "Harper," Avery finally said, voice trembling just enough for Harper to notice, "I need you to be honest with me. Not about Lena, about us." Harper froze. "Avery, this isn't the time." "It is," Avery insisted, pain flickering across her face. "Because, watching you with her tonight, I realized something. I'm not upset because she seems familiar. I'm upset because you never looked at me the way you look at her." The words hit Harper like a blow. Unexpected, raw, and painfully true in ways she hadn't examined. Harper opened her mouth, but Avery shook her head, blinking back something dangerously close to tears. "I kept searching for a lie because it was easier than admitting I was jealous. Not of what you have with her, but of how effortless it looks. Even if it's fake, it feels more real than anything we had at the end." Harper's breath caught. The honesty cut deeper than any suspicion ever could. "Avery, I didn't mean to hurt you." Avery's smile was small and heartbreakingly tired. "I know, but you did." Inside, Lena stood near the edge of the living room, pretending to admire the Harris family Christmas tree while secretly watching the porch through the frosted glass. She saw Avery step back from Harper, saw the pain in her posture, saw Harper's shoulders slump in silent apology. Lena didn't know their history, but she knew heartbreak when she saw it. When Harper finally returned inside, her eyes found Lena instantly. Lena felt something warm and dangerous spark in her chest, something that didn't feel fake at all. Harper approached slowly, her expression soft but heavier than before. "You okay?" Lena asked, voice nearly a whisper. Harper nodded, though her eyes told a different story. "Avery just needed closure," she said quietly. Lena didn't push for details. Instead, she stepped closer, offering Harper a small, real smile, the kind that wasn't part of any contract or script. Harper exhaled, shoulders relaxing for the first time all night. And as the Harris family called them back to the couch for hot cocoa, Harper realized with a jolt of fear and hope, the only part of this holiday that wasn't fake was how she felt about Lena.